there is a particular longing that runs underneath the twin flame connection, and that the connection itself does not fully explain. It is not only the longing for this person, it is something older than them, and something that would remain even if every question about the connection were resolved tomorrow. It is the longing for a quality of wholeness that feels, from the inside, like it requires another person to complete it, like there is something in them that you do not have, something in the way they move through the world, or in the quality of their presence, or in their particular relationship with themselves, that carries something you have been reaching toward for longer than you have known them. This video is about what that something actually is, not in them, in you, and about a framework that has been mapping this interior territory with extraordinary precision for nearly a century, waiting for the moment when you are ready to look not outward, but inward for what you have been seeking. Let us begin with an honest inventory, not of the connection, of yourself. There are qualities in this person, specific qualities, that produce in you a particular quality of longing that is different from ordinary admiration. Not simply the recognition that they are capable, or interesting, or good. Something more charged than that. A sense that in the presence of those qualities, something in you is simultaneously drawn forward and aware of an absence in itself. Take a moment to identify what those qualities actually are. Perhaps it is a quality of stillness they carry, an ability to be present in themselves without requiring external confirmation that they are enough. Perhaps it is their capacity for direction, for knowing what they want and moving toward it without the elaborate internal negotiation that you recognize in yourself. Perhaps it is their emotional fluency, the ease with which they seem to inhabit feeling without being destabilized by it, or their capacity for boundary, the way they can say no or stay or leave from a place that seems rooted rather than reactive. Now sit with what it feels like to be in the presence of those qualities in another person when they remain undeveloped in yourself. There is a specific quality to that experience. It is not simple admiration. It has a quality of incompleteness to it, a sense that this thing they have is something you were supposed to have too, and somehow do not. And beneath the longing for them, if you are honest, there is a longing for the quality itself, for what it would feel like to inhabit that in yourself. This is the beginning of the real inquiry. Not what does this person have that I need from them, but what does this person carry that I have not yet developed in myself? Those are not the same question, and the difference between them is the difference between a relational project and an interior one. Jung proposed that every human psyche, regardless of biological sex or gender identity, contains what he called contrasexual elements, interior psychological orientations that are in some sense complementary to the primary identity structure the person has developed. He gave these interior figures names drawn from the cultural and linguistic context of his time. The anima, for the feminine psychological orientation, carried within a psyche organized primarily around masculine modes. The animus, for the masculine psychological orientation, carried within a psyche organized primarily around feminine modes. It is essential to be clear about what these terms do and do not mean. They are not biological categories. They are not claims about what men and women inherently are or should be. They are psychological observations about the tendency of the developing self to organize more fully around certain orientations, while leaving their complements relatively undeveloped. And they are observations about how those undeveloped orientations exert their influence from within the unconscious, shaping attraction, projection, and the particular quality of longing that arises in the presence of someone who embodies what remains undeveloped in oneself. Jung described 4 stages of development for both the anima and the animus. These stages are not a hierarchy of spiritual achievement. They are a map of increasing psychological complexity and integration. The first stage is the most undifferentiated. At this stage, the contrasexual orientation exists primarily as a primitive and powerful force that operates through compulsion rather than choice. The person is drawn to certain qualities in others with an intensity that bypasses conscious evaluation. The attraction is real, but it is largely unconscious and largely projected. The person is not relating to the actual qualities in the other. They are relating to their own interior figure wearing the other person's face. The second stage brings greater differentiation. The contrasexual interior figure becomes associated with specific emotional and relational qualities. The capacity for genuine feeling or genuine direction begins to emerge more consciously, but it is still largely dependent on the outer relationship for its activation. The person can access these qualities, but primarily in the presence of someone who embodies them. The third stage involves the development of the contrasexual orientation as a genuine interior resource. The qualities that were previously only available through the outer person begin to be accessible from within. The person develops the capacity to generate their own stillness, their own direction, their own emotional fluency, without requiring it to be reflected back to them from outside. The fourth stage is the fullest integration. The contrasexual orientation becomes a living interior presence that informs the whole of the person's engagement with life. It is no longer something sought or projected, or occasionally accessed. It is part of the available repertoire of the self. Now, bring this map into the twin flame encounter. The extraordinary intensity of the twin flame connection, from a Jungian perspective, is in significant part the intensity of a first or second stage encounter with a powerfully charged contrasexual projection. The other person resonates with the interior figure with unusual depth, and the psyche, which has been carrying this interior figure as an undeveloped and therefore compulsive force, experiences the encounter as recognition of something it has always needed. The recognition is not wrong. What is being recognized is real, but what is being recognized is not primarily a property of the other person. It is a property of an interior orientation that the self has not yet learned to generate from within. This is why the twin flame encounter produces such specific longing, and it is why that longing, followed honestly, leads not toward the other person as its final destination, but toward the interior development that the encounter was always, at its deepest level, inviting. Jung wrote that what we seek in the beloved is in reality ourselves, not in the solipsistic sense that the other person does not exist or does not matter, but in the precise sense that the qualities we find most luminous in another are almost always the qualities we have not yet integrated in ourselves, and that genuine wholeness, the kind that does not depend on another person's presence for its maintenance, requires that those qualities be developed from within rather than sought from without. So what does this actually ask of you? The first thing it asks is an honest examination of the specific qualities you have been seeking in this person, and an equally honest examination of where those qualities exist, undeveloped or underpermitted, within yourself. The quality of stillness you find in them. Where in your own life does stillness remain undeveloped? Not because you are incapable of it, but because at some point it was not safe or not valued, or not compatible with the version of yourself that circumstances required you to be. The quality of direction, of knowing and moving without excessive internal negotiation. Where in your own life does that capacity exist but remain distrusted? Where have you learned to defer to others or to circumstances rather than inhabiting your own sense of what is right for you? The quality of emotional fluency, the capacity to feel fully without being destabilized. Where in your own interior life does feeling remain something to be managed rather than inhabited? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the actual content of the interior work that this connection is inviting. And here is what changes when this work begins to bear its particular fruit. The quality of longing for the other person does not disappear, but it changes in texture. It becomes less desperate and more spacious, less organized around a deficit that requires them to fill it, and more oriented toward genuine curiosity about who they actually are, independent of the interior figure they have been carrying. This is the movement from projection toward encounter that Jung described as the beginning of genuine relationship. When the projected image begins to be withdrawn and integrated, the actual person becomes visible for perhaps the first time, not as the carrier of your undeveloped interior orientation, but as themselves, with their own complexity and their own limitations and their own genuine qualities that may or may not correspond to what the projection required of them. And what you bring to that encounter, if you have done this interior work, is not the longing of someone who needs the other person to complete them. It is the presence of someone who has begun to complete themselves and who can therefore offer genuine contact rather than the particular hunger of an unintegrated projection. The twin flame connection asked for wholeness. It was always pointing here, not to them as your completion, to this interior process as the actual site where wholeness becomes possible. Come back to yourself now, not to the connection, not to this person, to the interior landscape of your own psyche, which contains, right now, both the orientations you have developed and the ones that remain undeveloped and waiting. Notice if there is a quality that you have consistently sought outside yourself that is also, when you are very honest, something you can feel the beginnings of within yourself. A capacity that is present but not yet trusted. An orientation that is available but that you have not yet given yourself full permission to inhabit. That capacity is not foreign to you. It was never foreign to you. It was simply the part of the interior life that circumstances, history, or the demands of the identity you were building did not have space for. It has been there, waiting, exerting its particular pressure through projection, through the specific quality of longing you feel in the presence of people who embody it, through the particular dissonance you experience when you are required to operate entirely without it. Jung wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. The twin flame encounter has transformed you. That transformation is real, and what it has produced, underneath the longing and the projection and the pain of disillusionment, is access to a more complete picture of what you actually are, not a half searching for its other half, a whole that has been learning, through this extraordinary and disorienting encounter what wholeness in a single human being actually requires. What is the quality in yourself that this connection has been asking you to develop? Not in them, not through them, in the interior of your own life, in the daily practice of being fully and honestly yourself. That development is not the consolation prize for a connection that did not resolve the way you hoped. It is what the connection was, always, at its most essential level, for